Hey folks, Suzanne with Real Lady Adventures here, and thank you once again for tuning in. Today we're going to talk a little bit about dry practice with firearms at home. There's probably a million different reasons why you might not be able to get to the range these days, so we're going to talk about how you can keep your skills up to par without having to go out. So stay tuned. Okay, so some of you might be thinking, why do I need to dry practice at home? I'm familiar with my firearms, I know how to shoot them, it's there if I need it, right? Well, the reason is to keep your skills up. Now think about it when you're first learning to drive a car. So a new car driver, their mind is focused on every single little action. Your foot on the gas pedal, your foot on the brake pedal, turn signals, how you're holding the steering wheel, all these different things. The way you get more comfortable with that is by driving more and more. Now, when you're first learning how to drive a car, you might take a driving lesson just to learn the basics, or maybe you went out with your parents or an older sibling and that's how you learned to drive a car. So in the beginning, you were still really tentative. You were probably a little tense, and you're still learning where all the controls are and just being able to do everything smoothly. The way you got better at that, and probably now if you're watching this video, you're probably old enough to have been driving for a little while anyways, you got better and better by driving more and more. And maybe it was driving to and from school every day or driving to and from work every day. So that's how you got better. You got more comfortable with everything, and now you can do a lot of these functions without even thinking. Now, the same thing works with firearms. The main difference with firearms is that we have a slew of different classes out there that you can take to refine your skills or to try a new skill. Maybe you want to learn how to do tactical stuff, or you want to get into competitions. And so you can refine your skills that way. But for the basics, you just need to handle your firearm on a regular basis. You need to shoot it regularly, you need to keep it clean, keep it lubricated. All of those things are going to keep your skills honed so that when you need or want to use that firearm, it'll be there for you and you'll be comfortable using it. Now, right now, especially over the past year, it may have been a little bit difficult to get to the range to do some practice. Whether it was indoor or outdoor, a lot of the ranges shut down, just like a lot of other businesses shut down last year. At the same time, a lot of people got really scared about what was going on and decided to go out and buy guns. When they did that, the demand for ammunition went up. Therefore, now we've got more demand with the same amount of supply that we had, and suddenly it's kind of hard to find, and if you can find it, it might be a little expensive. So you might not just want to take it to the range and just blow it all off in a day. So what do? Dry fire practice at home. So when I was taken out of work and kind of taken off of everything late last year due to shoulder surgery, I was not only restricted from fishing, which I've sort of gotten back into a little bit now, but I've also been restricted from shooting a firearm, which has also been kind of difficult. Just the jarring motion on your body would have been too much for my shoulder to handle. So what do? Pull out the dry fire skill cards. So that's what I've been doing, and that's what I want to talk to everybody about today, because even when all of this craziness ends, there's still going to be times where you either can't make it to the range or you don't want to go to the range for whatever reason. You've got ways to still keep your skills sharp while you're at home. So in comes dry fire drills. Now we're not going to talk about a lot of specific drills today. That's going to be a whole nother video. But we are going to talk about how do you get prepared to do dry practice at home, how do you set up your home location to do that, and we're going to talk a lot about safety. So safety, firearm safety is one of the topics that is very near and dear to my heart. It is something that that's the main reason, one of the main reasons why I got into training. I've been around firearms for a number of years. I've been shooting them, I've done some competitions, I do a lot of things, but I hadn't taught. You know, I brought a couple of friends to the range occasionally and I can show them basic things, but once you get teaching credentials behind you, there's just so much more that you can do to help somebody. So as I noticed last year, there were a lot of people who, they weren't necessarily anti-gun, guns just weren't part of their day-to-day life. But they got really scared with all of the things that were going on last year, and they decided to go out and buy a firearm, not knowing anything about it, but thinking it was somehow going to help them. In reality, if you have a tool that is that dangerous and you don't know how to use it, you're probably going to hurt yourself or somebody else. So that really pushed me to get more into training and to get more of my training credentials up to date. So that's why we're here today. And so there's a number of things that I just want to share with all of you, and one of them being firearm safety. So another thing that I run into a lot is I belong to a local women's shooting league, and we get a lot of new ladies in sometimes who they're not afraid of guns, they're not really new to guns, but their past experience was, my husband, my dad, my brother took me out to the range to try to teach me how to shoot, and it was a disaster. That's where a disinterested third party like myself can come in, and I've got no ties to these people, and we can just teach and learn the basics without any of the extra stuff attached to it. So, and again, another reason for why I wanted to get into training and why I'm so passionate about training. We can get into arguments and debates about whether required training to own a gun or any of that stuff is valid. That's totally up to you. I believe getting solid training when you're going to use a dangerous tool is important. The same way that I believe you need to get some training before you get behind the wheel of a car. So there are 3 basic safety rules that most people adhere to, and those rules are as follows. We call them the 3 always rules. Always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. Always keep your finger off the trigger until ready to shoot, and always keep the gun unloaded until ready to use. Now those are great rules. If you can't remember anything else, just remember always, always, always. Now, I have 4 rules that I've been taught, and they've come from various places, and this is kind of what I adhere to. 3 of them are very similar to those, and then there's one more that's a little bit different. So, always treat all guns as if they're loaded. That's just a given. That gets your mind wrapped around the idea that if it's a gun, it has the potential to be loaded and it has the potential to be dangerous. Even if it's a training gun like this is totally inert. This is a SIRT pistol, it's a laser pistol. The magazine doesn't remove. You can't rack the slide. It is inert. By the way, this is my safe direction when I'm in this room. So any firearm, anything I have is always going to be pointed in that direction while I'm training. So even if it is something like a training pistol, your mind isn't always going to differentiate between what's real and what's not. And so rather than confuse it and have your mind guessing, is that a loaded pistol? Is it not a loaded pistol? Anything that resembles a firearm that you are using in that way needs to be treated as if it's loaded at all times. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Now, same thing with this training pistol. You do not want to walk around with your finger inside the trigger guard like that. You don't want to do that. Our natural instinct when something, scares us or alerts us is to grab. And if you do that with this, you're going to grab and you're going to fire that. So whenever you're not shooting, your finger goes high and on the side of the slide. This is great also if you're in a training class or when you're out on the range. It allows the range safety officers or whoever's training you to clearly see that that gun is still in a safe state. So keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Do not point the gun at anything you're not willing to destroy. Now that's a really strong statement. Anything you're not willing to destroy. That includes the TV set. YouTube it, look it up. There are so many videos out there about people goofing around and aiming at a TV set. Guess what? They don't have a TV set anymore. So again, as I mentioned, in this room, when I am in here and when I'm doing practice in here, that is my safe direction. So everything I know is going to be pointed in that direction. And I'll talk a little bit more about how to set up a space a little bit later on, whether you want or need a backstop, or if you can just have a target on the wall. So do not point the gun at anything you're not willing to destroy. Now, the last one is always know your target and what's behind it. Now that's where this wall comes into play for me. So that is my target and I know what is beyond it. And I know that what is beyond it is still going to be safe if the bullet goes straight through that wall. So those are things you want to think about. You know, maybe you're shooting at the TV set in the living room because you're goofing around, but what is behind the TV set and what's behind the wall that's behind the TV set? That's where you want to really think about where you're aiming that pistol or any other firearm for that matter. So I am going to talk about safety a lot. Again, safety around firearms is a real basic skill to learn. People forget, even, holding, a something inert like this, it's a training gun, it can't even take a bullet, but you still, and I'm doing this on purpose, you still don't want to flag yourself. You don't want to wave your hand in front of it or aim it in some odd direction that you otherwise would not aim a loaded pistol. So safety all the time. That's going to be a big thing in all of the videos that I do. So moving on, how do you get better with your shooting skills? As I mentioned, dry practice at home. Some people call it dry fire practice. It's basically dry, meaning there is no live ammunition anywhere in the vicinity when you are doing this practice. So what I recommend and how I do it is everything that's going into the practice area with me goes into, I use this basket. You can use a box, a crate, whatever you like. But wherever you store all of your firearms and all of your gear, you go into there, you only put into this container those things that you are bringing out to your practice area. And I do recommend that your practice area be away from wherever you store everything else. Again, you do not want live ammo anywhere in the vicinity, period. When you're doing dry practice, it is strictly dry practice. It's not, oh, I'm going to practice loading and unloading and I'm going to practice dry shooting. No. Do those at two separate times in two separate places, and there are different ways to practice loading and unloading in a safe way. So again, another video for another day, but today we're talking about getting set up for dry practice. So you're going to gather all of your materials that you need into your basket or your crate or whatever, and then you're going to carry that out to your training area. Okay, so let's talk about what is going to go into your dry practice kit. First of all, the safety rules. The safety rules go with you everywhere. I like to keep these cards around or something posted nearby, just a constant reminder of the basic safety rules. Never a bad thing to have around. Now, when I do dry practice, I prefer to use one of my own pistols since that's going to be the one that I'm using on a regular basis. So I like to practice with it as well. This one, you can see it's cleared. It's got the flag in there. Nothing, no magazine inside. It is empty, it's clear. It can go in the kit. Empty magazine to go with. Nothing in it, so that can also go with. Snap caps that fit your pistol accordingly, Make sure you have the right size for your pistol. This happens to be a 9mm, so these are 9mm snap caps. Those go right in. Now, you might have some sort of laser system, whether it's a SIRT gun like this or a Mantis kit, something like that. Whatever you use, if you use these, if you use a blue gun, whatever you use, that will go in your kit as well. Then you want to have, if you're going to do any type of holster work, you want to have your holster, appropriate belts, those can go in as well. Those will go with you. Your plan. Now, you can find things like dry fire training cards, books. You can look online for different drills, decide which drills you're going to do, and those will go with you in your kit. Again, you don't have to do a whole bunch of different types of drills every time. Pick 1 or 2 drills to work on and just work on those. The rest can stay for another time. Another thing you want to have with you is a notepad and pencil, or pen, doesn't matter, but something you can take notes in. What are you drilling on today? Take notes about that. What do you need to improve on? What do you want to try differently next time? So take notes and keep track of the different trainings that you're doing so you know how you're progressing. And then a target of some sort. It might be a picture on the wall. It might be an actual target like this. Whatever you use, you're going to want to have that with you as well. Again, if you're going to have a backstop of some sort, whether it's a ballistic panel or a bucket of sand or something like that, you'll want to make sure that that is in your training area also. So then that's it. You take your whole kit, everything is in there. That's the only thing that goes into your training area. And when you're finished, everything goes back in this kit and then back into storage wherever you keep your equipment on a regular basis. So you have your dry practice kit, you've brought it out to your safe space where you're going to practice, you know what direction you're going to be shooting at or aiming or practicing your draw or whatever you're doing that day. You have all that set up. Before you begin, you tell yourself, and you say it out loud, because this trains your brain to know we are in practice mode and this is separate from live everyday life. You tell yourself, I am starting dry fire practice. And then you begin. Whatever the drills are that you're doing that day, 10 to 15 minutes is really all you need. Once you're finished with your drills, put everything back into your container and tell yourself, dry practice is now finished. Once you've done that, there is no, just one more. Once you're there, that's it. You're done. Don't confuse your brain. Don't deviate from the steps. That's how accidents happen. You thought you were done practicing, you forgot you left this thing out, you went and reloaded something else, and there's an accident waiting to happen. Go through your steps. Say out loud, practice is beginning, do your drills, practice is ending, put everything back in, put everything away. That's it. And even then, once you put all of your gear away, don't immediately go and reload up your carry gun and strap that back on. Just give your mind some time to process what you just did, that it's now over, and then you can go back and suit back up however you choose. Now, what happens if you are halfway through your training? You are 7 minutes in to your training session for the day and the phone rings or the kids knock on the door. You have to stop what you're doing and go attend to that, right? Here's the deal. When you get back from that, do not just pick up where you left off. Anything could have happened in this area while you were not there or while your mind was elsewhere. You come back, you start from the beginning of your checklist again. You make sure that everything that's in here is totally dry. You make sure that if you're using a real firearm, that it is cleared and it is empty of all live ammunition. Go through your checklist. Begin again. Practice is now beginning. Start your drills again. Practice is now ending. Put everything away. Put it back into storage and then go on with your day. We talked a little bit earlier about setting up your space for dry practice. Now, if you live somewhere where you have a basement, and literally a basement means it's underground, so those outside walls are just going to go into dirt or, whatever, rocks and stuff. In almost any of those walls are probably going to be a safe direction to practice. But if you're like a lot of people where you don't have anything that's underground, you have to think about what's beyond the walls that you have to work with. So, maybe you're going to face into a closet that is stacked with a bunch of stuff. And maybe you can put a bucket of sand, either in front of or behind that door. That becomes your backstop. That will catch a live round should something accidentally happen. We're human. That's why we go through these safety procedures. Yes, by definition, dry practice is dry. There's no live ammunition, but accidents happen. Again, you get interrupted in the middle of your training, something happens, and suddenly there's an accident right there. So, have these safety measures in place just in case. The same way that you have insurance, car insurance for your car. Maybe you're not an aggressive driver. Maybe you don't even drive a whole lot. But what about the other people out there? Accidents happen. So, you could put a bucket of sand. You can actually buy ballistic pads that are designed to put on a wall or put on a rack so that when you shoot into them, they're going to absorb that round and it's not going to destroy anything behind it. So Google it. There's a lot of different ideas back there. I've heard people talk about using the side of a full bookshelf. I've never tried that. I'm sure if you look on YouTube, somebody's done it. So that's a really good way to find out what's going to work best in your space. So that wraps up our video for today. Dry practice at home is a really great habit to get into. Keep your skills up. You can save a little money on that ammo that maybe you can't get your hands on right now. Maybe you've just moved to a new area and you haven't found a new range that you want to go to yet. So you don't even really have a place to go yet except your home. So these are all reasons why maybe we can't just get out and go shoot our firearms at a regular range. Really great ways to practice and keep your skills up. So thanks again for tuning in. Stay safe, and until next time, enjoy the adventures.